Good evening, everyone. My name's Derek Pratt. I'm the Director of Education here at the Erie Canal Museum. Thank you all very much for joining us today, and thank you to the Winifred and DeVillo Sloan Family Fund for supporting our lecture series this year, as well as our friends at the New York State Canal Corporation for their support in the Erie Canal Artists in Residence program. I'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the Erie Canal Museum is itself located on the homelands of the Onondaga Nation, central firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and that the Erie Canal is located on the homelands of all members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Mohawk, Oneida, Tuscarora, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca Nations. We recognize that the Erie Canal played a major role in the devastation of their traditional ways of life, negative effects of which linger to this day. Here at the Erie Canal Museum, we are committed to taking actions as best we can to do our part in addressing these wrongs through education and inclusion, including through efforts like our partnership with the Scano Great Law of Peace Center, reinterpretation of exhibits, and public programs offering important first steps in that process. So the impact of the Erie Canal has been transformative in a number of ways. Here at the Erie Canal Museum, our mission is to engage the public in this story of the canal's transformative impacts on peoples and places in the past, present, and future. This change can be expressed in many ways, including through art, as you will see tonight. But first, I'd like to highlight that this lecture is one of our 2026 Sloan Lecture Series, and we have some really great ones planned for the rest of the year in addition to this one. I highly recommend considering signing up for or renewing an annual pass, since you won't want to miss any of our speakers, and if you sign up, you will be automatically registered for the entire 2026 series, including recordings. Our next talk is on February 11th at noon and will feature Onondaga Historical Association's Bob Searing, who will be discussing how Syracuse became a center for civil disobedience during the abolition movement, which is a fairly relevant topic in today's world. And there's a whole lot more going on this year at the museum, but only so much time. So I'll just say, please subscribe to our e-newsletter, which is at the bottom of our website to get updates on everything going on at the museum. But now I'd like to introduce the artists who will be joining us. Sarah Cameron Sunde is an interdisciplinary artist working at the intersection of performance, video, conceptual, and public art. She investigates scale and duration in relation to embodiment, ecological crisis, and deep time. Her work is presented nationally and internationally, and most notably includes 36.5 A Durational Performance with the Sea, a series of 9 site-specific participatory performances and durational video works made by Sunde standing in bodies of water at full tidal cycles, made in collaboration with communities on 6 continents. Kari Varne is a photographer and educator living and working in Binghamton, New York. She received a BFA from the University of Denver and an MFA from Washington University in St. Louis. Her explorations of the landscape often take the form of photographs, installations, and ephemeral works. Her work has been shown in solo and group exhibitions abroad, including the Palace and Museum Bourbon del Monte in Monte Santa Maria, Tiberina, Italy, San Marco Basilica in Florence, Italy, and Kunsthaus, Rapperswil Museum, and Kamgarn West Schaffhausen in Switzerland. If there's anyone Swiss in the audience, I apologize for my pronunciations of those. But previous exhibitions in the United States include the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum in St. Louis, the Calenda Gallery, and Aeromont Schools of Arts and Crafts. Behl is a visual artist from New York who works across sculptural installation, performance, and film, culling myths to narrativize trickster archetypes and exploring gender and power. Z is concerned with chaos, attachment, and the role of the artist as world breaker slash remaker. She's a McDowell Fellow and has exhibited at the Hudson Valley Center for Contemporary Art, CAC New Orleans, Wasiak Project, Mana Contemporary, and performed at Pioneer Works. And last but not least, Hannah Smith Allen is a multidisciplinary artist working in photography, text, printmaking, book arts, and moving images. Her work explores how American history and lore shape the landscape and its people. It has been exhibited in museums and galleries nationwide. Allen's book, Borderlands, is held in major collections across the country, including Columbia University, UCLA, Arts Library, and the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. She has received fellowships from the New York Foundation for the Arts and the Aaron Siskin Foundation, and has participated in residencies at the Lower East Side Print Shop, Vermont Studio Center, Visual Creative Studies Workshop. She is also an associate professor of photography and digital media at Adelphi University. Ooh, we have a very accomplished set of speakers with us tonight, so I am happy to welcome them all here for our Erie Canal Artists in Residence talk. I turn the floor over to them. I'd like to introduce Angela Chandler from New York State Canal Corporation for another quick intro.
Thank you, Derek. Welcome, and thank you for attending the 4th annual presentation by our incoming and outgoing Erie Canal Artists in Residence. I'm Angela Chandler, the Vice President of Planning at the New York State Canal Corporation. At Canals, we're interested in using art to attract new audiences and to ask them to see the canal not as a commercial transportation relic, but rather as a park-like corridor revitalized through recreation and the creative economy for our future. We're interested in an arts program that both looks forward and uncovers stories about our past that we aren't so familiar with. In 2023, we partnered with the Erie Canal Museum to develop and launch our Artists in Residence program using New York City's Public Artists in Residence program as a model. In addition to attracting new audiences, uncovering new topics related to the canal, and offering the Canal Corporation new ways to engage with communities, this program, grounded in the physical and cultural space of the canal, also asks us all to envision the future of the canal. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program, and I'll turn it over now to Sarah, who will lead us off.
You're on mute.
All right. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Share. I'm going to start this. Okay. So yes, I'm Sarah Cameron Sunde. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and it's great to be here 1 year after we did our initial this same talk last year. Wow, how fast it's gone. So as mentioned, Derek mentioned in my bio, like 36.5 a durational performance with the sea is a project that I did for a very long time. It really started my connection to water. So I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I work on and with bodies of water ever since Hurricane Sandy hit New York City in 2013. That really changed my trajectory. And last year I did a project called Atlanta to the Atlantic, where I kayaked with a colleague 450 miles from Atlanta to the Atlantic Ocean, and we made work along the way. And then this is an image from Peaks, which is another project that is, again, looking at scale and duration, putting my body in relationship to water, to glaciers, to these mountain peaks that raised me. So all this work kind of manifests in different ways, but it comes together. I co-founded this arts organization and triennial called Works on Water, and together with Works on Water, we kind of have this hydrofesto, which guides my thinking a little bit in terms of how I approach all of my work, and in terms of working with water as collaborator. So the Erie Canal was the first engineered body of water that I've ever worked with, and that was very exciting. This map that Angeline gave me early on was definitely key for me in terms of my first research journey. It took me a long time to actually understand the canal. Because it's really hard to comprehend. So my first trip, I kind of went from east to west, and I stopped at as many of these places that are marked out on the canal as possible. And that was really fruitful. I was doing a lot of research on that first trip. I ended up making 5 trips up to the canal. I lived further south. Of course, as Derek also mentioned with the land acknowledgement, one of the kind of key things I was thinking about along the way was the displacement of the Haudenosaunee people and the devastation that caused, and how do I bring my body to this complicated body of water. And this map was a thing that really struck me because it was, I think a lot about elevation and topographies. And so seeing this map really helped me understand the history in terms of how this was like the canal got built here, because it was this place and then the Cumberland Gap, where were the only 2 options to get to transport things from the Atlantic Ocean to the Midwest. And then this whole history that Governor Clinton decided we're going to just do it when Washington decided not to. And so this map was like really key for me, and also understanding how the canal really shifted New York and made New York City become the New York City that we know today in terms of commerce. So these are just some images from my research in the museums as I was moving across the state. This is the canal Manhattan pre-canal and post-canal. And that is just, it like helped me understand what we're talking about here and why New York is the financial capital of the United States. The other thing that really struck me and that I wanted to work with was this map, which about the elevation change. And because I'm always thinking about measurement in relationship to my body, so thinking about how much change there is, 571 feet elevation change as we go across the canal. And especially I was interested in how the direction of the water changes, because you're not always going one direction. You're at the locks, it can change, And so that was something that I was really trying to connect with in all of my work this last year. I made 2 series of works that work together and separately. But the first series was in collaboration with Jeremy Dennis, who is an incredible photographer who I've been in conversation with for a long time. He is from Shinnecock Nation, so down on what's currently known as Long Island. And we've worked together a little bit before, but this was our first time kind of really spending a long time doing a project together. So this is called Surrender. And it was really about these questions of what does it mean to bring our bodies to this body of water, this engineered body of water and natural body of water in this moment, 200 years after it has been built. And what does the water want now? These were things we were thinking about. So I'm just going to, there's a lot of images in here, so I'm just going to scroll through them and show them to you. We also made some video work that will be on view in the show that's coming up later this year. I wanted to really embody this recognition of the systems that we've built and the waters and the lands that we have altered. So I was coming to this with these questions And Jeremy and I were talking a lot along the way. We were examining the questions with every site that we encountered. We were kind of focused on the middle section of the canal, but went to many locations. Little Falls was one spot. That's actually Little Falls. And then we also went to Syracuse. This is that square in Syracuse. That's where the Canal Museum is, right down the way where the canal used to go through. And a lot of the actions became about trying to reach the water, trying to listen to the water, attempting to touch it, being at that edge, surrender to this moment, to where we are right now. You know, I ended up thinking about the canal in many ways as kind of like a microcosm of the US, in that it's like it's so amazing, and there's so many innovations and incredible thinking and people and engineering that go into it. And then there has been this devastation that has happened as well, and genocide that has occurred. And so how do we reckon with that right now in this moment in time? So questions of repair and reciprocity were really on my mind. And Jeremy and I were hashing through these conversations in many different ways. Can there be reconciliation between our engineered past and an ecological future? And how do we make that happen? How do we engage in that? So I'm really curious also what you all are seeing in these images. You may notice actually when I have my blue outfit on that I have a brace. I tore my ACL about 2 weeks before this trip. Oop, there we go. That's the last one in this series. And so that injury actually became, Jeremy and I kept talking about it as part of a metaphor. And I had to work with it because we had set the dates of our intense week of work together long before that. So that's the first series. And I'm going to move quicker because I'm probably taking too long. And then the second series was made mostly in the fall, a little bit in the summer. I did this one on my own, concrete, steel, water, weather. I should say on my own, but with a lot of help from people I met along the way. There are 2 videos that I'm not going to try to show video on Zoom, but that they make up a bulk of what will be shown in the exhibition. And then here are some of the images. I spent a lot of time in my kayak, and I became obsessed with the opening and closing of the locks and the way that the water rises. I also was lucky enough to meet John Montague and get to go on the Seneca Chief, which made its journey all the way from Buffalo to New York City. There's John, and we bonded. We had some great conversations about measurement and how boats used to be built by like measuring your hand as a measurement. So that became something that was really present for me during my research. And then the guys at Lock 7 were just amazing. I hung out with them for one big long day, and they were awesome. And there they are. They love each other so much. So this is what I was really working with in these next few trips that I did, 3 trips where I was kind of looking at this perspective and trying to capture the water as it rises, the marks that it leaves, looking at the infrastructure, looking at the concrete and the steel, and how the water interacts with that, and what happens. So different and yet connected. Also, the like how the algae and the grass and the green, the ecology of what ends up connecting to or attaching to the infrastructure was really interesting to me. The way that we exist in relationship to these locks. That was a big part of what I was exploring. And oh yes, and the movement of the water, of course. So with both, oops, that is a double image. What just happened? Oh no! Oh, here we go. I must have sorry, I had some double images there. So I was able to, with both of these series, I was able to engage with some community members and do a couple sessions of deep listening. I don't know where I had a slide that says deep listening, and I don't know where it went. Community engagement. So, but basically, I'm always interested in bringing people to the water and inviting them to slow down and listen with all their senses. And so I was lucky to be able to do that with folks in Little Falls and then in Medina. And that's it. I think, did I do okay on time?
You nailed it. So
okay, good. All right. And there's my contact information. I also, just the last thing I'll say is that, I feel like I just barely scratched the surface with this year, and I am excited about some threads that have started that may be able to continue in different ways. So, and really excited for the new resident artists and to share and what I've learned, what we've learned, and to keep kind of in conversation with the canal. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, that was great, Sarah. And you also reminded me something I forgot to say in the intro. Yes, Sarah and our next speaker, Kari, Varne, their work will be on display at the museum starting sometime in April. Exact dates TBA. But yeah, we're very excited for that, and we hope you can all come out and check that out. But now I've already gone to introduce you, Kari, so take it away.
All right. Well, Sarah, that was wonderful. So thank you for starting us off. Let me make sure that that's full screen as it should be. Okay. You can hear me. You can see things. There we go. Okay. It's a bit of a lengthy title because I just couldn't quite distill it down. So I went with the land is archive, the canal is collaborator. Because I was thinking so much about what the land tells us through this project, and also the ways in which the canal and the materials found along the way became oftentimes direct collaborators, but also the ways in which this project became very collaborative across the many individuals that I met as well. So thank you very much for listening in, everyone, and thank you to the Erie Canal Museum and all of the staff there for your support, as well as the Canal Corporation, the New York Canal Corporation. It's been a wonderful year. As Sarah said, I really cannot believe that it's been a year. But it's been so exciting to feel as if this is a project that I've developed and will certainly continue as well. So in my work, I think about the land as having this kind of ongoing dialogue with the canal. And I wanted to explore this dialogue in 3 locations, 3 specific locations. So I chose the Rome Sand Plains, Oneida Lake, and then also the Montezuma marshes. And I chose them because of their ecological, cultural, and also historical significance. Um, Rome was the site of the first dig, the start of the construction of the canal. And also, it's absolutely, a fascinating place to think about the relationship between Rome and this very unique ecological site nearby called the Rome Sand Plains, which is one of the few remaining inland pine barrens in the country. And it's also the site of the Oneida Carry, which was significant for the Haudenosaunee nation, who would utilize this carry from the Mohawk River, and then you'd be able to carry canoes over across Rumsand Plains to Wood Creek, which would eventually lead you to Oneida Lake, and it became the kind of gateway to the Great Lakes region. I also was fascinated by Oneida Lake. It is the largest lake that is wholly contained within New York State. It was also and continues to be an important um, place for the Haudenosaunee, who have lived along the lake for many, many centuries. And also, it is a place that has many ecological upheavals and continues to have many ecological upheavals as well. The last site that I chose is Montezuma, and I have an image of the Montezuma Township as well as the Montezuma Migratory Bird Refuge when it was in construction. So Montezuma presented the most difficult site for the construction of the canal. It was exceptionally dangerous and difficult to drain, and it represented, there was a great loss of life of the workers due to both frostbite and malaria. And so when the swamp was drained, then the Erie Canal passed through it. But eventually it was decided in the 1930s that there would be a reclamation of some of the wetlands. And there continues to be a reclamation of many of the surrounding fields. So these agricultural fields have been given over to the wetlands, and it's now a really important migratory site. So in the production of my work, I oftentimes am drawing material directly from the landscape. This involves harvesting materials and then utilizing processes, in this case, silver gelatin printing and also cyanotypes, and boiling the plants that I have collected. Sorry, I've been teaching all day and my voice is really just hanging in there, so apologies. And so I boil these plants and then I get very different results, vastly different results, as you'll see. And so this was during a water chestnut pull in Montezuma. You can see, well, on the left, just how much more there is to pull. There's also the water chestnut up close. Yes, my dog was very unhelpful during the process. And then I took that water chestnut home with me, boiled it, soaked it, and then made a photographic film, of which my film was then developed directly in that water chestnut. And so the materials from the land are imbued onto the surface of the film and oftentimes have a really significant direct impact on the results. So this is just me, courtesy of Marty, who produced the video featuring me and Sarah's work. This is me measuring out some of the materials that I utilize for the purposes of the film and paper development. So I'm there doing the process of film development and then also paper too in the darkroom. In addition to utilizing silver gelatin processes, I also utilize cyanotype. And thanks to Amy at the Erie Canal Museum, I was able to get access to some of these really beautiful historical images of the canal produced with cyanotype. And so, there is this evocation when using cyanotype of these original images of the canal, because when we think about the relationship between photography and also the canal, they're within about 10 years of each other. And so we can think about these early processes and the ways in which, with the completion of the canal, then we had this sort of rapid dissemination of both goods, but then also of communication through the medium of photography. So my plan was that I would go to the three sites that I had selected multiple times over the course of the year, and I was really interested in seeing the ways that they transformed. I had a sort of general plan of that I would go specifically back to certain locations, but then I would oftentimes wander. And it was fascinating to see the ways in which a place that I thought that I knew and could recognize would transform, um, from one month to the next, from snow-covered lake to billowing clouds and gentle ripples. And through this process, I was thinking about the ways in which I could get acquainted with the land. And so I would go to these locations and notice what plants were present, but also the feelings and sensations that I had there, particularly at the Rome Sand Plains when thinking about the Oneida Carry and the number of people that passed through this one location. And flora started to emerge, less so here in the barren sand plains, more on the periphery relative to other sites. But flora started to emerge, and I would pay attention to what was there and what I felt comfortable using, and then would harvest both the photographs and then the plants and bring them back to the studio. Each place offered something different. In this case, I was using the eastern white pine, and this is a significant tree known as the tree of peace to the Haudenosaunee, and it lends um, itself to this beautiful kind of sepia tone that you see in this image, and also, sorry, the previous ones as well. And so that is all through the process of the plant toning the paper and the image actually emerging from that harvested ecology. I also utilize cyanotype, and I love the sort of wonderful, unexpected quality of the plants because I can never quite tell what might emerge. I utilize the leaves primarily and then soak the paper in those leaves for sometimes it's only minutes, sometimes it's many days, and you get these varied results from them. And no two prints are the same. And that's something that I've really had to welcome is sort of the unexpected nature and the sort of serendipity of this process because the plants are going to be available or not. They also, I might have more berries one time, more leaves another. And so I will never get the same print twice. They'll always be slightly different. And so I have to embrace what the plants offer, also what they want to do and what they very much do not want to do. And I thought that I would settle on this image when talking about serendipity and embracing the unknown and the unexpected because this was an unexpected double exposure, an unintentional one that I decided to embrace as well. And I love the quality of the landscape. This is Montezuma drying out when it had previously, just a month before, been, completely flooded with water. It was very, very high. And then all of a sudden I was kind of walking on the dry bed of the marsh and, was sort of struck by the land that had previously been hidden was now revealed and seeing all the intricacies of the soil. And so as I am utilizing these different processes, I'm seeing what plants can be harvested. But I'm very much aware of the presence of both what we consider to be invasive, what are designated as invasive plant species, and those that are native. And so I utilize a combination of those. Some of the native plant species are, the eastern white pine that I mentioned, the Kentucky coffee tree, and those that are invasive include knotweed, stiltgrass, and water chestnut as well. And I find that this speaks to our relationship with land and land use and water use and the ways in which we sometimes intentionally or inadvertently transform the landscape. And so all of these kind of layers become an archive of the things that we value and the things that have passed through this place. I know it's a bit jarring because we've been looking at silver gelatin and cyanotype images, but I had the chance to go to the Cornell Biological Field Station at Shackleton Point, and I was shadowing a group of researchers that was studying the round goby And this was within Oneida Lake. So the round goby has now been well established within Oneida Lake. And here, these images are depicting the process of monitoring them and monitoring. They were monitoring generally the number of goby present, but also they were collecting mature females to utilize in various experiments. And so this is the process of gathering some of the goby, sorting through, tossing back in those that were not round goby. And then also after the completion of the experiments, they keep each of those fish as well within their collection. And so through these experiments, they were also looking at things directly related to the canal. So this is one goby that's in, it's a kind of pin that is meant to simulate the canal and the locks. And they were studying how the fish would respond when there was a drawdown of the water and what they would do. Would they want to rush towards it, go away from it? And so this was a group of Cornell undergraduate students that were doing this as their thesis research. So it was fascinating to see the ways in which they were introducing them to different stimuli through these pins. I think like Sarah mentioned, the more that I was doing this project, the more that I wanted to do. I found that going out on the water was magical. Um, Going out in a canoe or a kayak or a boat and seeing the ways in which there's the richness of life and the sort of entanglement, but also the communities that are embedded along the canal too, that I don't think that I fully appreciated until I was actually out on the water as well. And the more that I've made, the more that I want to make. That's how I feel about this work. Um, because each of the locations offered so much in the many times. I haven't actually tallied how many times I've visited each site. But to see the nuances, to see the changes, and to see the emergence of the plants and then the die-off of others, was incredibly fascinating and makes me want to go back kind of again and again. So I see this as just a continuation of wanting to spend more time along the canal. And I'm really excited for the upcoming exhibition because right now it's very much a process of trying to distill things down and determine what's going to exist within this space because there are many different things that I want to share. Related to community engagement, I just wanted to do a special thank you to those that participated in the cyanotype workshop at the Erie Canal Museum. We made do, even though the sun wasn't always out, they made some really wonderful prints and some really beautiful results. And then I also found that as I was making my thank you slide, that it just became more and more people to the point that I was certain I forgot many of them. So thank you to all of you who supported my work through this past year.
Well, thank you, Kari. I'm jealous you apparently received a Canal Corp high vis vest too. Oh, exciting stuff. Oh,
We both did.
oh,
It's in
yeah.
my car, and I just want to drive around in it.
I wear it all the time.
Yeah.
Very official. Nice. Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
we can't wait to see both of your work at the museum. Now I'm happy to introduce our 2026 artists. Who knows? You guys might get your own high vis vests in the coming year as well. So we'll start out with Z, if you want to take it away.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you all. I really loved hearing Carrie and Sarah's presentations. It's so cool to learn how much, uh, as you know, we begin to study this history and this place, our interests overlap, and it's just exciting to feel as though we could get a head start from being able to see your show and learn all that you're learning. Okay, let me see if I can now screen share. Okay. Does that work? Oh, and I forgot to introduce Kim. Hold on one second. Hold on. How do I do this? Exit full screen. No. Shit.
It's okay. They've already seen my face.
Are you trying to get out of screen
Okay.
share?
Well, Kim is my creative collaborator, and we are doing a canoe trip down the canal together. So she's also my canoe partner.
Yes. Happy to be here.
And we have collaborated a lot artistically together on large sculpture projects. But this is sort of an adventure where we plan to canoe the length of the canal, also from the east to the west, upstream, retracing we're calling it the old towpaths, but obviously the barge canal is, a different footprint. But essentially also trying to, yes, embody the idea of the mule, the labor that moved the vessel. And
See, real quick,
yeah.
you exited full screen mode for at one
Oh,
point, so
I have to put it in again. Okay, how do I do that? Sorry. Show webinar? No. Fail. I'm so sorry. This is not my strong suit.
Within your page on the bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Now you should just be able to go to the slideshow view.
Okay, like
And then,
this.
yep.
yes.
Thank you guys.
Perfect.
Sorry. I'm better on the water. Okay, so yes, this is our second slide where we were. So yes, we hope to explore themes such as labor, gender, the body as engine, also myth. We've been reading this incredible book about, it's called Mostly Canalers, and it's all folklore collected stories. And we're thinking about racing caterpillars and the different incredible dramatic tropes that were part of this really wild old canal history, and how to invoke the some of that lyrical drama and chaos in the waterway today. Also, obviously, the idea that the canal itself is engineered and is part of colonial infrastructure is very present in our investigation. And we've been trying to determine what the right gestures are. Am I going to, bring water from the Hudson and wet it back into Lake Erie? Is there an ecological experiment to perform while wearing, mule masks and moving through the canal on canoe? As we're reading and planning this trip, this paddle, we're learning a lot about what could unfold on this adventure and how to best document and then tell the story. We'll be canoeing along the way and bringing symbolic cargo, a sack of flour, a piece of lumber, a load of coal, and some salt. And of course, documenting the trip, having friends come as well to photograph and our essentials so that we can sleep and camp along the way. And it's been incredible to learn so much about how active the canal is already recreationally for bicyclists, etc. So we'll be paddling about 6 hours a day for, 22, 24 days, depending on the weather, and interviewing people informally, recording interviews, making drawings and photos. Maybe we'll put a large format camera in the boat, but that might not make it into the final iteration. So I think I've gone over my 5 minutes, but really excited to be here. Thank you, Angela and Natalie, and so great to meet you guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Well, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to seeing that. Um, yeah, and now, last but not least, we have Hannah. So, you want to...
Hello. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really excited to get started. It was really great to hear about the projects that you, Kari and Sarah, have done this last over the last year, and just to see how deep you got into the subject matter and sort of owned it. And I think that's really inspiring. So it's a good starting place. I wasn't going to show any images, but then I got jealous because everyone had their shiny, nice images and they weren't just staring at their faces. So I was like, maybe I'll show a couple. It's mainly what past work, so I can sort of describe how I'm going to approach my year. And sort of what are the things that I want to accomplish. And I'm just going to show a few images, but I think maybe staring at other things aside from my talking box head might be kind of more exciting. So hold on one second while I share. And it's just a couple of images just to show you where I'm coming from. And now, where's my slideshow? Is this looking weird? Because I'm not full screen again, too. Sure. Is that no?
No.
There we go, right? We're good? Yes. Okay, so actually this was maybe I will start because I have some notes here that I just want to am I still sharing now? Do you Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry. I'm going to show you the images at the end. I think it's easier for me to talk from my notes, but I wanted to thank you all for having me again. So I am originally trained in photography, but I think over the years, as the intro, as was outlined in the intro, my practice has really expanded. So I had a year-long residency at the Lower East Side print shop. So I've done a lot of printmaking. I've done a lot of collage and moving image. Conceptually, to date, my work, there's a lot of strands of my work, but it's really centered on looking at the American landscape as a political space that holds multiple histories overlapping all at once. So this has taken me to photographing the American Southwest border, the border between the US and Mexico, and Revolutionary War sites, as well as different battlegrounds, and really thinking about how these sites are shaped by the histories and the stories within them, the physical landscape, and how they're shaped by those landscapes. So really thinking about sort of the multiplicity of experience through collage and layering different images. So that's sort of where I'm coming from, and that's how I want to tackle the canal project. For this project, I'm especially interested in exploring how the canal's cultural, social, and political histories have been shaped, how these histories have shaped the land and will continue to ultimately shape it as it moves in from sort of an industrial site, working canal into a park, an active park. I anticipate combining all these techniques that we talked about, the collage and the printmaking, and layer them with archival and original imagery to create these sort of complex landscapes. I'm also interested in the architectural plans that from the past and the engineering plans from the past, as well as the ones that sort of project into the future, how it's going to be reimagined as a park, and how these sort of more, I would say, once you sort of isolate pieces of the architectural plans, how they become abstract, but how they can add to these collages so that the plans and become physically part of these collages themselves. So it's archival imagery, vernacular imagery, and then these plans. And what's interesting about the plans for me is they represent, the imaginings of what a landscape can be and the dreams of what it can be. So all these pieces I want to come together into sort of these complex reimagining of a landscape. So I'm not interested in sort of the scenic, necessarily the scenic or the pastoral landscape, but really about sort of these landscapes that are shaped by history. For this project, next week. I haven't been out. I've been to the canal, but I have not been out since I was awarded this residency. So next week I'm going to go to Syracuse and I'm going to spend some time at the Erie Canal archives. And then I'm also Angelin's going to take me to different sites along the canal so I can start thinking about how I can make original imagery, not just using archival imagery for these collages. And I think as a starting point, I'm committed to making rubbings of the actual canal structure. So I want to cover the architectural structures of the canal with paper. And like you did when you were a kid making graveyard rubbings, I want to imprint the canal itself onto the paper. And I'm interested in how the paper molds to the canal so it becomes a three-dimensional object within itself, and how these rubbings can be part of the layered collages that I'm intending to make. So it's really got that direct presence of the architecture of the canal and how that overlaps with archival imagery and the histories of whether it's native or abolitionists, how these different images sort of come together and get compressed into one image that informs the landscape itself. So I see these rubbings as an essential layer in these collages, an imprint of the canal's material presence. And so ultimately, I hope, there's a lot of planning, and then there's a lot of improvisation when you get to the site and you feel the presence of that site and you start to think about how you're going to create an image essentially. And so ultimately, what I'm imagining is that these sort of reveal themselves almost like archaeological sites, so that through the layers, whether it's through the layers of the actual rubbings themselves or onto a print of a vernacular image or an archival image, or through the sort of the thin line diagrams of a architectural plan, through those layers, you start to sort of unearth these histories, much the way an archaeologist might sort of unearth things in the ground. So that's sort of what I'm thinking in terms of how I'm going to approach the project. And then what I wanted to share with you is just some past work. I imagine this project as being much more focused on the different layers, but you'll see in the work sorry, I can't talk and navigate at the same time. But you'll see in the work that that my work often utilizes different layers here. So I just have 4 samples of sort of where I've been in the past, so you can get an idea. And then all right. So this was the Borderlands. This is the book I made. So it's sort of juxtaposing virtual, actually, and physical landscape of the border and compressing Mexico and the United States into single images. So it was a book. This was a print, for instance, where you start to see through the physical architecture and the structure of the wall itself. It's a photograph with a printmaking on top of it, so you can see some of these layers I'm talking about. And then it was designed into a book so that the physical book echoed the structure of the wall. And I think there's a lot of interesting correlations between the wall and the canal. Obviously, they have different histories and different purposes, but both are very much part of our American landscape, honestly, and both are man-made. So I think there's some interesting correlations there. And then these are some more recent collages and prints that I've made where you sort of see the multiplicity of different versions of the American border wall all at the same time, sort of coming together. And so you can start to see the different layers that start to reveal images behind. So this is sort of the precedent in which I'm approaching this new project with. And that is my 5 minutes.
Thank you. All right. Well, great work, all of you, and or soon to be great work. Either way, we're really looking forward to this. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat, or if any of you have questions or comments for one another, feel free. Oh, put that in the chat. Any questions for our artists, folks? Yes, a lot of people looking forward to this. Um, I should mention as well, I noticed Kari shared um, an image of the Skillshares that we did last year, where people did cyanotypes. I believe both Z and Hannah will be doing something like that this summer as well. More to be announced soon. Yeah, a lot of people saying thanks a lot. I see Alon, one of our other former artists in residence here. I think we have a few logged in. Um, ah, will the Lions photos be featured in the April art show?
Do they mean of our high vis vests?
Oh, North Joel.
What I have some of, do you have images from lions that are part of your work? Because I do.
I I will as well, yes.
Yeah.
And I know you have that absolutely beautiful. There's three that stand out, but there's one where you're facing away.
Yeah.
Then there's the crane in the background. That yes, definitely. I would say I would advocate for that's inclusion that the inclusion of that image to be printed. That would be my request. And then I have some. I was fascinated by the zebra mussels.
Yeah.
And some of those are going to be featured in actually Hannah, an accordion book that I will be doing, a tabletop accordion book with all of these kind of little details of looking down and seeing different things on the ground. And so, yes, I'm going to have some of those from the Lions visit featured as well.
Nice. Well, I'll have to let the Peppermint Museum know that their hometown is the star of the show, not Lions.
Well, we're
Uh,
gonna do some sort of map too, right, Carrie, so that everyone can kind of see all the different locations where we were.
right.
I was gonna ask, or kind of ask Z, if you guys know about Marie Lorenz, who's an artist who traveled the canal. She went west to east, but anyway, just and also I would love to come join you for a night on with my kayak.
Please. Yes. Um, yeah, we're inviting people to. Marie Lorenz's work, yeah, she's awesome. And I think I was supposed to see a performance recently on the East River that she did. Maybe it was like 3 years ago or something like that. And there was a
Yeah,
horrible, yeah, but there was a horrible thunderstorm,
I was
and
supposed to go that night too,
yeah, so I
and
didn't,
didn't.
I didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
So I've never seen her, um, a performance of hers live. But yes, yes,
I can connect you to her if that's interesting to you. She's a
totally,
wonderful person
absolutely,
too.
yeah, yeah. But but yes, rather than do this solo, it felt important and interesting to do it, together, and also to go the wrong way, um, and also to go in a canoe, and those were all sort of yeah, intentional choices that then I had to sort of write about and figure out why. But a lot of friends have said, "Oh, I want to come for part of it," and so we've been speaking with Angela and the Canal Corps about 10 is the maximum, but are there certain days and places where we could reenact some of the stories or myths? We found an incredible book at the library in Albany with original songs, about the canal. We're thinking about trying to get people to come and sing at one of the locks, or how can we reactivate? But thank you for making that connection.
Yeah, I also learned a lot from my 450-mile kayak journey, which can share with
I
you.
I wrote I wrote your phone number
Yeah.
down and on paper here, so you'll be hearing from me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Good, good. And actually, the songs, it's so interesting. Another thing that happened for me while every time I was out on the canal was I would sing the Erie Canal song, and then I would like force myself to be like, okay, well, we need a new song. So anyway, I have tunes that I'm working on that are new anthems for the Erie Canal.
Cool.
Well, um, great. Can't wait to hear those. We
Yeah.
need some new CDs at the museum, rather than the one that plays on loop and haunts our dreams. And I see Z already have at least one person in the chat who says they'll be there to sing along and what have you. Um, we do have one question here. I believe it's for both Sarah and Kari. What tips do you have for busy people to take the first step to calm down and be so physically present in these Erie Canal spaces? And I'm sure it'll be useful advice for our incoming artists as well.
Well, I can speak to my process, but also my desire for looking closely at things and utilizing plant species because um, through the act of photographing, certainly you have to be very present. And my process is quite slow as I'm moving through the landscape. Um, but, part of my sort of desire to visit and then revisit locations was to be kind of intimately aware of how they would transition across the seasons and even across multiple days as well. And so I think kind of repeated visits to a place could be a good strategy for that. In terms of being able to name the thing, to name a plant, then recognize it, feel a connection to it, and then recognize it maybe closer to home as well. That's something that when thinking about kind of sustainable processes in photography, it does draw a direct connection. And cyanotype is a really interesting way to kind of get into, and it's a very approachable way to kind of get into sustainable photography. So for me, it's always through the act of making, right? Through the act of photographing. But I think just looking and drawing connections from there can be a good strategy to start with.
Yeah, I agree with everything Carrie said. And I think that sometimes it's also about like bringing awareness of the canal and the water into wherever you are. So even if you don't have time to go visit the canal, you can like close your eyes and breathe deep and kind of like orient your body in a way that allows you to, so that you can feel it, feel the presence. Um, and then also, I've been amazed at how this very simple action of just like bringing people to the water and inviting stillness and silence and just like as a group, and you can obviously do it by yourself too, but um, it's kind of amazing how we don't allow ourselves often space to do that, but what can shift if you also open yourself up to all the sensory experiences. So like just like what are you seeing, what are you tasting, what are you smelling, what are you hearing, and just like working your way through the senses, and listening with all of your senses is one of my favorite strategies.
Nice. Well, hopefully
Great
everyone can
question.
take that out on the canal with them. Yeah. And we have one more question from another former artist in residence here, Udip. Carrie, did you use plants for your film development or just toning the paper, I guess?
Well, Judith, it's great to see you in the chat, and I was thinking back to your lovely work and your presentation last year. So thanks for joining. Um, it's always a gamble, but very much worth it. I do develop my film in the plant developer. So I do sometimes do some tests and sometimes I just chuck it in and hope for the best and hope that it's good density for the negatives. But yes, I utilize the mixture is very straightforward in that it's washing soda, vitamin C, and then the phenols or the organic compound of the plant that has that component of the developer properties just as like a caffeinol process would. And so it's actually quite stable once you've tested it. I'm not always the best technician of like writing down exactly what I've done each time, but I've gotten better and better as I've tried more and more plants. And then I really enjoy the process of utilizing it for the paper developer, just because the varied results in the kind of toning of the paper. But yes, for cyanotype toning, it's excellent, but it's also really great developer too.
All right. I can see why I studied history, not science. Um,
I just
but very interesting stuff. Great. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Did anyone have anything else to say to one another? Or
I
yeah.
have one thing, which is just especially since we know that a couple of the past residents are also in this call right now, that I really think that and that it's great to like have us all in conversation together and going into this year, just want to make myself available for you, Hannah and Z, about to like call on and I don't know, maybe there's a way we can officially share or something. But and also, I went first and didn't do a good job of thanking the Erie Canal Museum and the Canal Corp and Angeline and Natalie and Derek and Steph and everyone who's been supporting us this year. It's been amazing. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you all. Oh, and I see Garth from the Everson is here too, who displayed several of our artists in residence work last year. So he's thanking everyone there. Also, I saw in the chat, and I can't resist a shameless plug for the Erie Canal Museum. If you need more inspiration for those songs, February 28th, we're having Mules and Melodies about mainly the history of organs and pianos on the canal. But anyway, thank you all. Yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody's work in the coming year in the exhibit and elsewhere. Yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning in tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Night, folks.